Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List. I am your host, Kurt Schmidt, president and partner at Foundry, and I am so excited for my guests today because you are lucking out by getting to know my friend Sarah, and especially when it's on the best show on the internet when it comes to leadership and all those things by a poll that I just made up, and it's fantastic. And speaking of joining our fantastic team, we are hiring. Yeah, that's right. We're hiring. You could join us. You could join our team. We've hit, let's see, the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company list 2 years in a row. So lots of opportunities. If you know someone who's looking, make sure you send them our way, foundrymakes.com/careers. You know, it's a great place to work. You know, I might be biased. Probably I'm biased, but let's jump in and start talking to Sarah. Sarah, how are you today? Thank you for joining me.
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh yes, no, it's my honor. So tell me about the work you do. Where are you at? What's your role?
Yeah, I'm at a company called CHS Inc. We are in Inver Grove Heights, Minnesota, and we're a big agricultural co-op. And so we have locations all over the rural United States as well as international. I have been the Chief Information Security Officer there for about 5.5 years, and I also lead employee productivity and data privacy. Fun stuff.
That's what I love about your role in particular, because you have security and productivity in one title, which, you know, typically at most places those things kind of don't smash together too well. You know, and how have you been working from home mostly throughout the last year or so?
Yeah, we all went home on March 17th, and we all, the headquarters locations for CHS. We still have many locations where people have been going into the offices or plants or refineries day in, day out for the last 18 months. But yeah, we never thought it would be 18 months, and here we are.
Here we are. And who knows? It could be another 18 months for everybody knows. So with that, though, you know, there's been a lot of transitions in terms of people's work-life balance when it comes to, you know, before it was like, you know, I got my commute, I come home, I kick off my shoes. Now I go into my routine and whatever kind of self-care that might be, right? It might be binging Netflix. It could be some brown liquid. It could be a number of things that help you out. You know, how have you found in that transition, Sarah? How have you found best? Was it pretty natural for you to sort of be able to separate out the work and life sort of thing? How did you approach it, and how are you approaching it now?
Yeah, in a way, it was challenging, and in some ways, it was really relieving in a way. So I call them COVID silver linings. I love that I don't necessarily have a commute and can fill that time with a morning workout. I love morning workouts that kind of just get me set for the day and more energetic, as well as then, you know, the challenge was just shutting it off. And I've always had that challenge. Being a CISO, you never know when you're going to have an incident or get called in. And so I personally tend to integrate both of those things. And sometimes it can get me in trouble. My hubby has to keep me honest and just kind of remind me that he's in the room when I might be checking work email at night.
Yeah.
And I have been trying to be diligent about that for years. But it is sometimes hard to turn off. And I know especially now because people haven't operated in that pattern of weaving in and out of personal and work. As maybe long as I've been working at it. I know a lot of people have been challenged by that. It was interesting. I read an article about doing just more of like a computer shutdown at the end of the day, just to really sort of like close off work and, you know, be in personal mode. But that commute time, it does give you a bit of that transition from, you know, the work grind and into being, you know, there and present for people in your life. So what would be maybe helpful for people is to take that commute time into a walk outdoors as a transition from work into personal. And yeah, some things have been good, some things hard.
Yeah. No, I love what you said there, because I think, you know, there's things that worked well for me, like you had just said, the commute time was an important time for that transition to happen. And yeah, personally, I had to sort of recreate that working from home in order to get back into that mindset where I could go for a walk and listen to a podcast, much like I would do in the car. But also, you work in security, and security is not something that is 9 to 5. Right. And so, you're going to have flare-ups at random times. And, how do you sort of try to keep a balance of like, if something pops up, because it happens with me, right? So I run a business, and there's things where I'll get a message at 10 o'clock at night with some emergency or something that needs to be addressed. One thing I do is I try to roll over some of that time into the next day or two to get some of that time back that I had spent. Because again, it's like, I look at it kind of like a bank of emotional labor that I have to put into my work. And if that bank gets too depleted, then I'm just, I'm a shell of a person, and I'm not going to help anybody. I'm just going to let you react to that.
It's so true. We all have to refill our well, and however we do that, can be different and tailored to the individual. I think that that's so important, because there are times where I don't do a good job of establishing boundaries and holding true to those boundaries. And then I show up irritable, stressed, anxious about the, whatever situation is in front of me. And I don't show up as my full and just like well-being self that I want to be as a leader, which is so important, because as a leader, people are looking to you to help sometimes refill their well, or give them that feeling of being valued and recognized. And especially as a leader, we have to be very diligent about refilling our well. And what's interesting? I have been a little better about testing the waters of when someone escalates something to me, not reacting to it and not being like Johnny on the spot, answering and responding. And it's interesting because about 50% of the time, it just works its way out. Someone takes on the issue themselves, or handles it, or thinks through, okay, what should I do? What would Sarah do in this situation?
Yes. They got one of those bracelets, right? Yeah. What would Sarah do?
Something I'm toying around with. I'm certainly not great at it yet, but it's something that I've been practicing. And then too, I think what's really important is, because I am a bit of an always on, or that's just how I know I need to be as a CISO and a security leader. I try to just be very careful about sending things out at night, sending things on the weekend. And so I've been trying to be diligent about not letting that bleed into people on my team who might not, or might be early on in practicing boundaries and understanding that, we don't always have to be 24/7. That's exhausting, and we're going to fry our people, and our people are going to leave. And that's so important to keep good people. So those are a couple things I've been trying.
I love that you said that, because as leaders, we send out cues to people. So if we are sending emails on the weekends and at nights, that's telling other people in a way in order to get to where I'm at, this is what you have to do. And that can either manifest itself into people overworking themselves, or people thinking this is a bad place to work. Neither which are great outcomes. So I do similar thing where I'll write emails at night, and then I'll put a timer on them to send them like the next morning or whatever, so I can feel like the email's been sent, and I can then my brain can shut off, a little bit easier. But I totally understand what you're saying, because I think as leaders, we don't realize the weight that we have in every message, in every meeting, and things that we show up. We assume that people think we're just one of the team members, and while we definitely desperately want to be considered one of the team members, we're not. We are in charge. We're responsible. We're accountable, and people understand that. And it's something that I've had to work with leaders on a lot over the years, is making sure they understand that, sending, abrupt messages in reply to people sends a message of like, you're not happy, you're not excited, right? And I think that's why some of us overcompensate by using lots of exclamation points and emojis now, because you really have to kind of get across the context that like, it's okay, like, oh, whoops, a mistake happened, smiley face, we'll fix it tomorrow, exclamation point, and again, it's because you're my at least my hope in doing that is sending a message that don't worry, like we'll solve this problem together, because I know like in my past when I got short text messages or whatever from my boss, I just sat there and I was like, oh God, like they think I'm an idiot, and so I'm very careful in that. Yeah. Exactly.
We all have those nightmares.
Yeah. Do you find that that your communication style has changed much over the last 18 months, or is it still pretty much the same, or have you been, would you say, I don't know, just a little bit more aware?
It's really interesting to look at that. I believe that my communication style has changed a bit because I think we all hide now, at least those of us working remote, we hide behind this digital, technology and cameras. So I used to be, a call in without my camera on person. And I have certainly changed that habit. And I also sympathize or empathize with people who need a no camera day because it can be exhausting after 18 months. Always having your camera on. So I totally get that. There's a balance, but I think that, the team seeing my beautiful new space that my husband made for us during COVID, which has been a great office space for me, I think is really important because I think there's that connection. And then I would also say that I used to be the person maybe that would send an email versus reaching out and talking to someone and having a conversation. And although that's a constant practice, I've been much more purposeful about saying like, hey, do you have a minute for a phone call versus an email? I think people are just I'm personally so tired of email. I have a really good email management system. I'm very thankful for that. I'm an inbox zero junkie, OCD right here. However, I know that a lot of people struggle to manage email. And if you want someone's attention and you also want to just connect with them personally, just because, again, we're all kind of, in our own spaces and not necessarily having some of that water cooler chat. I've been just much more purposeful about reaching out and having a phone conversation, which I think goes a long way to build trust and maintain trust.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I think, again, as leaders, we've been challenged, and I've said this a lot on the show over the last 18 months, is that bad leadership really was a sore thumb over the bad leaders out there didn't have a chance to hide anymore because, we're on camera, we're sending messages, the worse they are at communication just really stuck out as how bad they were at it. And it became really apparent because of our lives and our work and our home life, and now our home is not only our office, but it's our, it's everything. It's our whole center of our lives. There's a lot of vulnerability that creeps into the work stuff now, right? So, before it was, I'm going to make an appointment for this thing or whatever. But now that stuff's happening in the middle of the day, and you've got, people are calling in while they're on video calls while they're driving, and it's all over the place. So, for me, it's been really about understanding that creating a safe space for people as much as I could by being vulnerable. And how I've created a safe space is just being vulnerable first, is expressing, I'm struggling with some of these things. I'm challenged by some of these things as well. Not trying to be this stoic statue as a leader, but showing people that I'm also a human being and empathetic, and creating a safe space for them to be able to, express the challenges that they're facing, I think has been really important. And I think the bad leadership are the people who assumed like they're basically just looking at their clock going, when is everybody going to get back in here in the office so I can watch and make sure they're doing their job?
Yeah, that's productivity, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. When I could see you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're doing your work. Do you find that that you were sharing more vulnerability over the last 18 months with people than maybe you were previously?
I do think so. I think it would be really interesting to hear from people on my team to keep me
Yeah.
honest with that. But I do feel like I have been more vulnerable. And I know that in the last probably 3 months, with everyone's hopes and dreams that we were going to be on a path to what a new normal would look like.
Yes. Yes.
And we were feeling the draw to come back into the office. I know a lot of people just felt anxious about what does that mean in relation to my kiddos? What does that mean in relation
Yes.
to my one car family potentially, and just all of the luxuries that have come with not having to struggle with some of that handoff, and just being requested to a bunch of events again, which is
Yep.
fun, but
Yeah.
you have to sort of like limit what you say yes to and know that by saying no you're being gracious to yourself. And so a lot of people were struggling with that, and I could tell, and I
Yeah.
shared my personal struggles, and I also shared, though, what we're here to do, which is to support the organization and
Yep.
what the broader organization needs. And there are people on all ends of the spectrum on
Yep.
how they see what the future might look like. So
Yep. Exactly.
day by
Well,
day.
yeah, exactly. And because I think, some people, when they think of security, for example, they think of something more cold and calculating like CIA like, but you're much closer because most of the security problems are people problems, aren't they?
Yeah, it's been interesting with the rise in ransomware. We used to
Right.
certainly say that about a year ago,
Yeah.
and now I think of, I have a new face of the bad guys out there, especially going after education, government, all of those smaller
Yeah.
entities that haven't been able to invest in a CISO or a security team. And it's disappointing and sad, but certainly whenever the board asked what my greatest security fear was, it was employees not knowing what to do or not
Yep.
doing the right
Education.
thing.
Yep.
And yeah, that's where we
Yep.
spent a lot of our time at CHS past five and
Yeah,
a half
and
years.
and it's that communication part, right? Because as a security leader, I can imagine you're working closely with people in HR and all these other people to make sure that the messages are getting out about don't click on that link and don't do those. Don't register for that thing with your work email and your work password.
Yes.
And that's what I've found because being a non-security expert, but I would say a security fan. I'm a fan of security.
We don't have many of those. You're a rare breed.
Oh, I am. I'm definitely a fan of security, and because again, like it goes back to that emotional labor. If I know that I'm doing things and like two-factor authentication at home and things like that, I feel like I'm avoiding a lot of emotional labor I'm going to have to do later
Totally.
if I don't put in the extra 1 minute now to do that thing or double check that link before I click on it. The amount of headache I'm going to cause myself later, So let's talk quickly, Sarah, about physical activity. You mentioned going for walks and things like that. Are you a gym person? Are you a yoga person or anything like that? Do you, or are you more of a TV meditation sort of person? How do you refill the bank the best way?
I am so excited that you answered this question because I've also been through a journey on that. I used to be a hot yoga person, so Up
Yeah.
Yoga, which is in South Minneapolis. I love that studio. And I found quickly, with them spinning to virtual quickly, they did an incredible job of serving people in the community with yoga very early on in 2020. And I just found out I'm not a virtual yogi. I like the experience of being in the room
It doesn't
with
work,
other
huh?
people and hearing, everyone's breath and, the teacher being present and in my physical space. And that's just how I love yoga. We are, beneficial. Yeah, we benefit from our beautiful summers here, but we know too that they're not going to last very long. My husband and I finally got on the Peloton train, and so we got a Peloton at
Oh,
last
fun.
December, and it's changed my life. I am a total believer in Peloton.
You're a convert, huh?
I am. The instructors are
Good
so
for you.
incredible. it feels like a mind, body, soul experience. And I have just really appreciated being able to pivot to that. And I have to say, like, kind of pivot in and out of like gym. I was doing fitness competitions for many years. So I was
Yep.
definitely in the gym when I was
Yes.
focused on that. And then I just needed a break from a gym. And then when COVID happened, our gym closed. So we were like, how do we build a gym in our house? And we did. So
That's
I
good.
don't even have to leave for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife did the same thing. She got a treadmill. Um, she was on the University of Minnesota track team, and so she's always been a very active person. And I was a professional bike rider in my early youth, and physical fitness has been a big thing for us. But it's less about the physical part and more about the mental part. Really, just like you said, and I think, to what you'd said, like I noticed some people struggling with, why isn't the same thing working for me, right? Why is I keep going and I keep doing the same thing? I think that's been some of the best advice I received was, just try something different, get on a trampoline or like go swimming or, try something completely different. Don't try to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Because, right, that's the definition of insanity, right? If you keep trying to expect the same results and you keep doing the same thing and you're not getting it, I think it's really important that you're open to trying new experiences because I do believe that the whole idea, at least for me, the physical activity is way more about my mental state than it is about, building mass or, drinking muscle milk or
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I don't want to get all like crazy yogi woo woo on you, but I just recently went to a yoga teacher training, and those always sort of bring me back to being vulnerable, connecting with people, connecting with myself, and like what's going on with the thought patterns, but then like how is that creating action that either will serve me or not serve me. And so I did do a reset in July and was able to go to Costa Rica and spend 7 days offline, off of work, to refill my well pretty completely, meeting an incredible group of women down there and just, reflecting on what are good choices I'm making, what are bad choices I'm making. And having that type of community opportunity was so crucial to me because I needed that after a year of this. It's interesting when you think about how much just like you absorb from the news, whether you watch the news or even just see your news feed on whatever social media platform you're using, you're soaking up a lot of that junk. And if you don't have a way to like clear it, it starts to show up in miraculous and not so great ways.
I love that you shared that. I think being able to completely shut off and completely separate yourself is so valuable. And it's so hard. It's so hard to do because as we get older, the one thing we do besides getting more, besides collecting wrinkles, we collect responsibilities, and they pile on and they pile on and they pile on, and sometimes we can let those responsibilities define us. And I think that's a dangerous place to get into, because if you step outside of that and you look and you're like, oh, all I am is this framework of responsibilities, you lose who you are. You lose your own personal self. And that's really depressing to think about, so I think to your point, being able to, at least for a short time, shed all of that framework of responsibility and accountability for a little bit of time and be able just to spend some time with yourself has been really important for me to be able to be effective in my work, with my family and all those things. And that if I don't take that time, and even if and again, it might not be going on a retreat, but even if it's just an hour or two a day or a few hours on a weekend too, it really makes a big difference. But you've got to be able to shut down those responsibilities in a way where you're not kind of just like looking over your shoulder, like, I'm still kind of watching them, but I'm really focused here. It's like having your phone out at dinner, right? It's like, no, I'm listening.
What it does is it empowers your team. And sometimes you think like, oh, I'm going to stress people on my team by not being here. But in a way, it allows them to take on, get some additional exposure, take on some additional decision making. The team gets better when you take time away. And
Yes.
it's interesting because that has definitely been a work in progress for me and many others. And there are people in our organization and organizations as a whole who are maxed out on like their PTO time. They like feel like the company is going to go under if they take time
Right.
away. We are
Exactly.
literally like pushing people, schedule it and get it done. Like
Yep.
you have to cut it off.
Yeah, the boat's gonna stay afloat for a little while. It's fine.
Yes.
And I get it. I mean, you're especially you and your team, you're in a very important role that to keep not only the company safe, but people safe in the organization from bad actors out there and just bad mistakes. So yeah, it can feel really daunting to take some time for yourself because you do, I do see like people work in quality assurance and security, customer service. They take it personally, the work that they do. And I think those people are great at what they do, but I think again, back to if you drain all of the funds out of the bank,
completely. And I have to spend a second too, just like expressing gratitude for my team. Like I thank you, team, for letting me take time away. That is so crucial, is to just give that recognition to the people that allow you to take the time.
Yeah, it's huge, and to understand, that again, back to what we were talking about, the visual, the cues that we send, because if Sarah's not taking time for herself, that means I shouldn't be, and
Exactly,
and she's going to think I'm weird, for doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was just speaking with a leader not too long ago whose owner is really old school and really struggling with people not being back in the office. This person is really troubled that people are not back in the office. And, I'm like, this isn't a business problem. This is an insecurity problem. This is so don't go and try to speak to this person from a business aspect and why people working from home and whatever is talk to them on a human level, on why are they feeling insecure, about people not being able to see people. That's not a business problem. That's a personal insecurity. And I think, again, going back to, if you're seeing your leaders aren't taking time for themselves and you're wondering why they're acting erratic, yeah, maybe it's time for you to step in and say like, hey, maybe you need a break, maybe go on a skiing trip or something. And what have you seen in your team? Have you been taking cues as well from your team on how they've been managing through this time? Have you learned some things from them?
Yeah, for sure. I think that when the summer was approaching, as a IT leadership team, we came together and we were just like, how do we manage people's summer or support them in having, soaking up the summer. And so the company pretty much as a whole had meeting less Fridays, and that's been crucial.
Oh, great. That's fantastic. I love that.
For people on my team. And I told them, coming out of the summer, like as a boundary, just like manage that as you need. Like if you need to carve out Fridays for heads down work, carve out Fridays for heads down work. Like, and I will support you, and I will probably try to do the same. And so I think having some of those conversations, and I feel like we always had some of those conversations, but I just think that people are maybe expressing what they need more so now, maybe than we did before when we were all just so busy and go, 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 go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and back to that point, I think being leaders that are throwing out options instead of waiting for the teams to come to you with things, right? I've seen that in other organizations where, they're like, well, so what do you guys want to do? It's like, I don't know what's okay. What's okay to do. I don't know. I'm going to go work from Costa Rica. I don't, whatever. Like, you know, and I think, again, as leadership, sending those cues and sending those things that, you know, these are things we're thinking about, these are things we're talking about, these are options we're weighing, and we want you to weigh into those things, giving something to people to react to instead of sitting there putting it on them. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone to say, you know, tell me what you think is good. And they're thinking like, well, what are my peers thinking about? What are my boss thinking about? If I go to them and I say, you know, is this a trick question? You know, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and what works for one person might not work for
right.
all as well. So I think it just needs to be very tailored, as recognition does, we know, in this day and age, and
Yep.
celebration. Some people like that, you know,
Yes. Yep.
spotlight, and some just like the pat on the back or the, you know, thank you. And so,
Yep.
yeah, I think we kind of need to treat that similarly.
Yeah. And that's what I would say is that, you know, to people that are watching this, you know, if you're struggling with communicating with your leadership, I mean, make sure you're going to them and telling them what do you need, and just, it's okay. Like, even though sometimes they might seem like they're too busy to listen, like, you know, challenge them. Don't let them get away with, you know, half communications if you feel like that's what's happening. I think it's important that you're going and you're telling people what you need, because what I've seen over the last 18 months is people, you know, because maybe there's bad communication, instead of going and challenging their leadership, they just look for a new job, or they just leave, because they assume that there's no challenge, there's no opportunity to challenge what they're seeing and what's happening. And you know, I think that's sad that sometimes that leader, because of that poor communication, doesn't get that opportunity to grow and learn, because their team needs to challenge them and say, you know, well, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about no meeting Fridays. What do you think about that? Oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that. But if you haven't established a trusting relationship with your leader, it's going to be really difficult to go to them and say, like, I don't want to have meetings on Fridays. What I've seen people do is be like, oh, I've got a ton of PTO. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take every Friday off for the rest of the year. And it's like, well, that's one way to do that. Or you could say, let's do no meetings on Fridays, and I'll just take a 4-week vacation at the end of the year. Like, I don't know. But again, what I've told people is that there's no right answer other than communication. Let's just keep an open line of communication. Tell me when you're feeling vulnerable. Tell me when you're thinking, you're stressed and things are working for you. Let me know what communication style works for you. Do you want to call me? Do you want to text me? Do you want to Slack me? Do you want to email me? Do you want to meet for coffee? Because don't assume that one communication style works for everyone. You know?
Yeah. We've done a couple things at CHS with this, and many companies I'm sure have, but it's good reminders. We have a stay interview guide that leaders can use with people on their team, and it just asks a bit more grandiose questions about, like, what's like stressing you out, or is there anything that's that CHS is doing, or that the company is doing, or that the team is doing that causes you pain, or causes you to even think about departing.
I love those questions.
And I believe that we are not good generally about taking time and asking some of those bigger, broader questions. It's like, do you have everything you need? Is there anything I can help you with? And those just seem sort of like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of the rush. And then two, we also have a framework for crucial conversations. And whenever anyone comes to me and asks, I'm struggling with this person, and what should I do? I used to try to take that monkey from people and deliver the feedback to the other person. It gets lost in translation, and that's the telephone game. And this crucial conversations, just provides a framework for, you said or did this, and it made me feel, or it made the team feel, and just having some of those heartfelt conversations from a place of, wanting the team to be better, or the person to be better, is so crucial now and into the future. And let's just talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you said that, Sarah. I think, again, if you're doing one-on-ones, you're doing those things, don't just talk about work, because it, That's what, as an employee, you might assume that's where my value is. So that's what we're going to talk about, is where I bring value. But I'm, at our organization, we hire people to enhance our culture, not just our work. We want to have a fun place to work where we take our work very seriously, but we have a good time. So we like to bring in people and keep that open in the one-on-ones to, like, yeah, we can talk about work, but let's talk about, how's your dog? I heard, I heard he's 13 and not long for this world. Let's talk about, how you're dealing with that. And, having those types of conversations, because I do want to build a relationship of trust and connection, so that when something is really hard and important, that they feel like I'm someone that they can talk to about it, and that I'm not there to judge or smack them around or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah. Well, so I thank you so much for taking the time today. I appreciate you. You're a very busy woman, very important job, and I thank you so much for sharing your insights. If I want to connect with you and maybe I want to share some stuff with you, like what's a good place to find you?
The best place is on LinkedIn. When I was going through transition from one company to another, I really brushed that up. I need a new profile picture. I need a new bio lift. I'll work on that as a to-do. But LinkedIn, Sarah Engstrom, is a great way to connect with me. And I would love to connect with people, not necessarily vendors. Those are usually the ones that hit me
There's
up.
There's plenty
on
of
there.
those out there, yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate being here and being able to speak to important topics and share my perspective and hear yours as well. Yeah,
thanks. I appreciate it, Sarah. You're a genuine person, and I just love the vulnerability you share, especially in such an important role in such a ginormous corporation.
I try not to think about it.
Yeah.
Thanks, though.
It's good to know that there's actual humans in these monster corporations. I love it. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. So that was my talk with Sarah. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to join me. And did I mention? Yes, I did. I did earlier. I did mention that we are hiring foundrymakes.com/careers. Go and check it out. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join me. It's Thursday. Yeah. Is it Thursday? It's Thursday. Yeah. Okay. We'll see you next time.